Earlier today, I was having a conversation with one of Yah's direct lines. If you don't know what a direct line to Yah is, go back and watch the videos. I have them here. Go back and watch the videos. Anyway, I was talking to this direct line, and we were discussing Pastor Stephen Darby. And then all of a sudden, the Ruach Kadesh hit me and said, Stephen, just like Stephen in the Bible. Pastor Stephen Darby is just like Stephen in the Bible. May he rest peacefully from this earth, because I know Pastor Stephen Darby is with Yahshua. But when he was here, he was a force to be reckoned with. He was a force. You hear me? There is, I don't even think it's a remnant of people like him. He was a force to be reckoned with. There's only one other person that I know that is comparative to him right now on this earth as a pastor, and that is somebody that actually worked with him when he was alive. That is Pastor Omar Tebow. They have the most similarities. And once you get a hold, and once you hear the teachings of somebody that's woke and tells the truth and wants to make sure you know who you are, where you came from, where you going, the powers that you have that Yah gave you, once you get somebody that tells the whole truth and nothing but the truth, once you hear somebody teach the whole truth and nothing but the truth, like Pastor Darby, Pastor Omar Tebow, you don't want to go back to fluff. You can't go back to fluff. Any regular church, a word church, whatever they got going on teaching fluff, you can't stomach it. Because once you learn the truth, there is no going back. So those of you who may not have had the opportunity to hear any of Pastor Darby's sermons, they are available on YouTube. When he was alive, he was telling the truth 12, 15 years ago about what a lot of us are just now waking up and figuring out. He had been discussing this stuff. So, and his sermons are like, I know several of them I have listened to several times, because they are that informative. They are that deep. They are that excellent. I go back and listen, and I learn something new. Like all the stuff that I go through, I go back and listen. I say, dang, sure did. All of his sermons are relevant to this day. Just type in Stephen Darby Ministries, and you'll go to his channel, and you'll be able to see all of his older sermons that he had. So the scriptures that I'll be referencing today are Acts chapters 6 and 7, and I'll be using the NIV and NLT versions of translation. So the name Stephen, or some may say Stephen. I know somebody that spells their name exactly this way and they pronounce it Stephen. So I will probably go back and forth saying Stephen or Stephen in the presentation. That's just the way it is. So be it. So we can see that the name Stephen derives from a Greek origin, which makes perfect sense because they were amongst Greek-speaking Yahudim Hebrews during the time frame that is going to be discussed. And the meaning of the word or the name is crown or wreath. It is notably associated with Saint Stephen, that's who we're discussing, and of course he contributed to its popularity. Now let's go to the book of Acts, where we are introduced to Stephen. Starting with verse 1 in chapter 6, it's titled The Choosing of the Seven. So it says, in those days when the number of disciples was increasing, the Hellenistic Jews among them complained against the Hebraic Jews because their widows were being overlooked in the daily distribution of food. So if you are kind of confused what this means, the difference between a Hellenistic Jew and a Hebraic Jew, so the only difference is where they were born and raised, right? They're still from the 12 tribes. So if you need some understanding of how this happened, how people ended up being in Greece, which is the Hellenistic Jews, and how people ended up being in Rome, different places, a good place to start would be the book of Esther. When you find the Xerxes, King Xerxes had 127 provinces back then, and the Israelites, the Judean Israelites, for the most part, that's what they were able to live anywhere that they chose amongst those 127 provinces. And they stayed there. A lot of them did. Not many went back to Jerusalem. More stayed in other places than they went back to Jerusalem and, and all the surrounding areas. So if you need a little more clarity on that, I would suggest reading the book of Esther, starting with the first chapter and the first verse. It just goes right into it. But anyway, so another example to compare this would be, since the Hellenistics are from Greece, so they, of course, practice the customs from that area, and the Hebraic ones are from Jerusalem. They practice the customs of their native, so they're considered native Hebrews. I'll give you an example in today's terms of what this means. So we have a group of women who are widows in the United States, who are of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they speak English. We have another group of widows who are from Panama. They are also from the 12 tribes of Israel. They are in the United States, but they speak Spanish. So they are from Panama. They moved to the United States. They speak Spanish. So you have one group who is native to the United States. They speak English. The other group is native to Panama, and they speak Spanish. They are together. In the native country of the United States, they are being discriminated against, the Panama widows, because they are from a different country and they speak a different language. And the people that are from the United States who are speaking English were prioritized. This is the issue that they were having. That was what was going on. It was just Greece and Jerusalem, or Judea back then. So that's the only difference, just different places. Verse 2, so the 12 apostles. We're talking about Yahshua's 12 apostles, his main 12 disciples. Those were the 12 apostles. So the 12 gathered all the disciples together. So all those people that followed him were disciples. The 12 that he had, they say disciples for the most part, but they were like the top disciples. They were apostles. The 12 gathered all the disciples together and said, and Yahshua had men and women that were disciples. He didn't just have men. He had women too. So he gathered them all together and said, it would not be right for us to neglect the ministry of the word of Yah in order to wait on tables. Brothers and sisters, choose 7 men from among you who are known to be full of the Ruach and wisdom. We will turn this responsibility over to them and will give our attention to prayer
and the ministry of the word. Verse 5. This proposal pleased the whole group. They chose Stephen, a man full of faith and of the Ruach HaKodesh. Also some other ones. And the other person that they go into detail about kind of is Nicholas, who was a Gentile from Antioch, who converted to be of Judaism. Yes, Antioch, the place where they made fun of the 12 and the disciples and called them Christians. That Antioch. He was the only Gentile in the bunch. And the one that they went into specifics about and said he was a man full of faith and of the Ruach HaKodesh was Stephen. And they presented these men to the apostles, who prayed and laid their hands on them. So all the disciples, all of those people that started following Yahshua's work, all of Yahshua's disciples chose. This goes back to the first form of voting. It's not the first form, but it is one of the first forms of voting. Because, before that, they casted lots and did other things. All of that's considered a form of what we call voting now. They're choosing who they want to lead certain things. And it says in verse 7, so the word of Yah spread. The number of disciples in Jerusalem increased rapidly, and a large number of priests became obedient to the faith. Now here's where it gets interesting and more like Pastor Stephen Darby. The comparisons are real. It says Stephen is arrested. Stephen, a man full of Yah's grace and power, performed amazing miracles and signs among the people. So he had all kinds of gifts. He could heal, he can prophesy, he can tell folks facts about the past, about what's going to happen in the future. It said performed amazing miracles and signs among the people. And it says, but one day some men from the synagogue of freed slaves, as it was called, started to debate with him. They were Jews from Cyrene, Alexandria, Sicilia, and the province of Asia. None of them could stand against the wisdom of the Ruach with which Stephen spoke. So they persuaded some men to lie about Stephen, saying, we heard him blaspheme Moshe, and even Yahuah. This rose the people, the elders, and the teachers of religious law. So they arrested Stephen and brought him before the high council. The lying witnesses said, this man is always speaking against the holy temple and against the laws of Moses. We have heard him say that this Yahshua of Nazareth will destroy the temple and change the customs Moses handed down to us. At this point, everyone in the high council stared at Stephen because his face became as bright as an angel's. Wow. So Stephen is still arrested. They took him before the high priest. Then the high priest asked Stephen, Are these accusations true? So everything that they were saying against him, all those lies they made up against him, talking about he was speaking against Moses, he was speaking against Yahuah, all the stuff that they were saying against him, they made up and lied on him about. This high priest wants to know if this is true. So Stephen replied, and basically he went down the whole list, starting from Abraham, and about how Yah brought him through. He brought him through Mesopotamia and everything that happened. You know, he left the land of the Chaldeans, lived in Haran. It goes all the way down, and then it goes into, you know, all the stuff that Abraham went through, and he was the father of Isaac. Everything. He knows the whole history, right? He's saying everything that makes sense, that should tell them that he is not a liar, that he was telling the truth, right? He was going through all of it. And he said, you know, they will be oppressed as slaves for 400 years, all of that stuff. Like, you know, he's going through the what we call Deuteronomy 28 now. All of that stuff. You know, it was something different then, but now it's the Bible to us, the Old Testament, you know, to us. But they called it the law of prophets. It was something along that lines, what they called it, because they only had, like, you know, a few books back then. Now we have a Old and a New Testament. So this Testament wasn't in there, but he's going through all the Torah, all the stuff that's all the, you know, everything that happened with the ancestors, right? It's as far as from Abraham, and he goes all the way down. He talks about everything that Moses went through with all these stubborn people, and how he spoke face to face with Yah. If you go through all of this, go all the way down to verse 50, and then he goes into talking about David, all of the ancestors. It says David found favor with Yah in 46. He goes through all of this stuff. Like, why would you sit up here and lie about me? You know, he went through all of this. All the way down to verse 50, you can see that he goes from Abraham to David. And he's talking about all the stuff that the ancestors went through. There's no way that he should be called a liar. So for verses 51 through 59, I'm going to go back to the New International Version, the NIV. And it says, and this is Stephen talking. He's talking about them. You stiff-necked people, your hearts and ears are still uncircumcised. You are just like your ancestors. So all the stuff that he done went back, he threw it back and told them about all the stuff that the ancestors did. They're acting just like them. He said, you always resist the Ruach HaKodesh. Was there ever a prophet your ancestors did not persecute? They even killed those who predicted the coming of the righteous one. Like all the prophets, they persecuted. Isaiah, Jeremiah, all of those prophets back then. Ezekiel, they all were all of those major prophets. Go read those books. Same thing. Says they even killed those who predicted the coming of the righteous one. And now you have betrayed and murdered him. Like everything that the prophet said. And it came true when Yahshua came. And they still persecuted him. You who have received the law that was given through angels but have not obeyed it. So Stephen was calling them out. Ooh. And of course, look, it says, look here in 54, it says a stoning of Stephen. They were so swole. It says when the members of the Sanhedrin, so that's that high council again, heard this, they were furious and gnashed their teeth at him. Ooh, you know the devil. You know Mastema and his friends. All them folk can't stand when they called out. Woo! They gnashed the teeth at him. It says, but Stephen, full of the Ruach HaKodesh, looked up to heaven and saw the glory of Yahuah and Yahshua standing at the right hand of Yahuah. What? What? Look, he said, I see heaven open and the Son of Man standing at the right hand of Yah. At this, they covered their ears, and yelling at the top of their voices, they all rushed at him. That was the enemy, the Beliar, Mastema, Satan himself, all of those demons coming and rushing him. They dragged him out of the city and began to stone him. Meanwhile, the witnesses laid their coats at the feet of a young man named Saul. While they were stoning him, Stephen prayed, Lord Yahshua, or Adonai Yahshua, receive my Ruach. Now this one scripture right here is Pastor Stephen Darby.
That's where your sympathy come from. See, listen, y'all. I've already decided they probably gonna get me. I already know. I done said too much. I can't recant what I done said. It's out there. I got 300 some videos, and I'm talking about this most of my video. And because this is where we are, so I'm just gonna keep on saying it. So, because I know that they probably gonna get me, I ain't really got nothing to lose. So I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. You ain't used to it because your pastor, not me, your pastor, he's scared to say it because he's trying to hold on to his stuff. He thinks that somehow this world's going to recover. I know it's over. So if you kill me, you're just going to send me quicker.
He knew that these folks wanted him, but he continued to be righteous. He continued to tell the truth about Yahshua. He continued to tell the truth about Yahshua's people. And he said, I know they're after me. But Lord, receive my spirit. Adonai, receive my Ruach. I know that you are going to say, well done, because I did everything you wanted me to do, everything you needed me to do. I did it. So receive my Ruach.
So we see that Stephen in the Bible was ready for Yahshua to receive him, and Pastor Stephen Darby was ready for Yahshua to receive him. They did what they needed to do, and they were ready to accept what was coming to them. See, when you do what you're supposed to do, when you obey Yah, even though all this stuff, these trials and tribulations, all the stuff that he went through, all the trials and tribulations, and then all the stuff that Pastor Stephen Darby went through, you know, they had him on the list. They were watching him. They were doing all kind of stuff. You go watch his videos, you will understand what's going on. Same thing. And it's such a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. This was ordained that they both are named Stephen. And they both went through similar trials and tribulations. And they both ended up with Yah.